it's Joe Pardavila, and this is the Forbes Books Podcast, and I hate to be Captain Obvious, but the Olympics is big business. NBC paid over $7 billion for the rights to broadcast the games through 2032. But who else benefits from the Olympics outside of the obvious? Athletes, corporate sponsors, host countries. Do winter sports companies benefit from an Olympic boom? My guest this week is Matt Gold, yes, his real name, and he's the CEO of Christie Sports, one of the largest winter sports specialty retailers in the nation, with more than 65 locations in Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Washington. Matt, how are you today?
Doing great. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
And my motivation for having you on the podcast is strictly sort of selfish, because I know that we're recording this in the middle of the Winter Olympics, and you are one of the biggest retailers of outdoor sports and lifestyle in the U.S. How does this time of year, every 4 years, affect your type of business?
So the Olympics, is certainly gets a lot of attention, media coverage. It's a milestone event, without a doubt, within the sports industry, in the calendar. And, for winter sports, certainly, we look forward to it. Every 4 years. I just think it, again, puts more of a spotlight on winter sports, gets people's, attention, gets their sort of synapses, firing, get them sort of, thinking about, and obviously just sort of helps interest and awareness in winter sports. We tend to see, a bit of an impact and a bit of a, tick into consumer engagement, with us, as you said, as a leader in snow sports, specialty retail, and as a service provider, in the Western U.S. But I wouldn't, mistake it that it's night and day,
right?
In terms
it's not like your Black Friday,
all
right?
of a sudden, everybody is, kind of coming out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden wants to get on the hill. But as I say, we certainly, look forward to it, and is very healthy for the sustainability and, I think for consumer interest and, the stickiness of winter sports and participation.
Yeah, I wanted to start with that because I always feel like we're so influenced by media, whether it's what we see on television or films. And I remember when I was a little kid, I went to see the movie La Bamba. Do you remember the story about Richie Valens? And
Yeah.
After seeing that movie, I was like, Mom, I want to take guitar lessons. And I remember taking guitar lessons for 2 weeks and then quitting and realizing, wow, that guy who was not Richie Valens, Lou Diamond Phillips, who was faking playing guitar, makes it look really easy. It's really hard. So I was always curious if there was like an uptick in sort of like winter sports gear around the Olympics, because I feel like if I was a little more amenable or someone who was a little more open to starting new things later in life, once I saw like a Shaun White on the half pipe, I'd want to go get myself a snowboard. So I was always curious if that affected your business or the bottom line.
It certainly doesn't hurt. Helps to an extent. I think, when you mention snowboarding, the Olympics and the fact that snowboarding, which came on the scene, as a new activity and as a new trend, and maybe, things like, rollerblading, for instance, that didn't stick. There was the risk there that the fact that snowboarding organized itself competitively, and including the Olympic movement, actually, more, that skiing, which has a more history attached to it, really played a pivotal role in the growth and, as I say, the real stickiness of now snowboarding as a winter sport activity and as a business.
Yeah. And let's dig into the business. And if you could quantify, it'd be great. How much of your business is old school skiing, snowboarding? And I'm sure that number has sort of shifted over time. From my years of, my one visit to the ski slope, I would see, as years gone by, more and more people snowboarding. You're obviously seeing that on the ground as well, right?
Yeah. And I think, that's been great for the industry, for the business, but also for the experience, the fact that, there really actually isn't old school skiing per se anymore. there's just been a real kind of broadening of the genres and of the activities for snow sports, whether that is s alpine skiing, which would be probably thought of as the most traditional. But then there's the new trends of backcountry skiing, of alpine touring, of snowboarding, like we talked about, of freestyle skiing, of actually skiing and snowboarding, which you access through mechanical, through snowcats, or through helicopters, cross country skiing, which is part of Nordic, and people who don't maybe want so much of the action, but want to get outside and enjoy nature and just get on a pair of snowshoes and go for a hike.
And Christie's has been around for, I think, since like 1958.
Yeah.
You haven't been there that long. I think you joined as CEO in 2017. But talk to me about the growth of this company to survive all the peaks and valleys of sports retails. I'm old enough to remember the Sports Authorities of the world and the Hermans of the world that have come and gone. What's that ride been like for Christie Sports?
Yeah, good question. The company, is about 63 years young. Certainly there's been some, fits and starts along the way, but it has really been a story of thriving, rather than, just surviving. And I think the company's continuous focus on being the best at what we do, on success and winning in snow sports as a Colorado company. And I say this is really the hub, and where the action is the biggest market as a state in the U.S. for snow sports. At the end of the day, we're explorers, we're adventurers. And I think, that's really, shined through at the company, of not really like growth for the sake of growth, but of continuing to explore and continuing to strive to just get better, just make the guest experience and the employee experience, just keep making it better. And, the business will come. We're a service provider. The service we provide and the experience we provide, to us is more important than selling somebody something as a transaction. The company's sort of religious and relentless commitment to best-in-class customer service, and experience, I think is what, really has allowed us to continue to thrive and grow and expand, in healthy ways, and inspire us and inspire, our customers. And that's, resulted in a pretty good business that we continue to be wildly excited about growing for the future.
And not that I was counting, but you used the word experience 3 times. And I feel like in your business vertical, the experience as opposed to the transaction outweighs everything, because of the fact that as much as I think you guys have an e-com, you're involved in e-commerce, no one is going to buy a snowboard or skis. And I don't mean, I'm just more of a overall statement. You're not going to feel comfortable buying those online. You're going to have to go into the store, feel them out, having an experienced customer service representative tell you about the ins and outs of that particular product. How do you cultivate that experience? Is there like a Christie Sports school? Because I feel like that's pretty much the secret sauce of your company.
Yes, you nailed it. It's really a very people-driven, business. It's one that is really, again, all about that customer service and the experience. And we do it, I think, somewhat just like honestly through the culture of the company, what I would call sort of an osmosis effect, because we have a great team and a lot of bench strength, fortunately, of people with shared values of we love what we do, we're passionate, we care. We have a saying at the company, a mantra. We love what we do and where we live and just want to share it. It's not just a job, it's a lifestyle. And, that really shines through. The tenure at Christie's is amazing and is one thing which really attracted me to the company. We have 65 stores now, everywhere you ski and ride in the Rockies and beyond. And the average tenure of our 65 store managers is 15 years.
Wow.
In a business like this, which, yes, people classify us as a retailer. I don't love that because, again, I think we're a lifestyle service and experience provider. But no matter what, that kind of tenure, and then even in our head office functions, it's about the same, with average tenure of 15 years for our very passionate employee base. And that experience, that knowledge, that expertise is what shows up day in and day out when, our guests look to us, our very loyal guests and new ones that we attract for that expertise and really sort of a consultative sale process with equipment, which is very technical, which has a lot of, safety considerations. And again, it's not just the sale. The sale is just actually part of the start of the relationship between us and the customer. We, really stand behind them and have their backs no matter, what after service or what customization, they may, require across our whole network.
And you were mentioning the customers, old and new. And I always feel, and I have walked into a Christie Sports in my life, but when I walk into a lot of these ski shops, as someone who is as basic as it gets in the knowledge of skiing, I always feel bad, or maybe it's just me, that I feel self-conscious that everyone in the store is kind of looking at you and they're like, what is this idiot doing? He's wearing jeans in here. We don't wear jeans on the ski slope. So how do you... And again, you mentioned the fact that it's osmosis, but how do you create that feel for like the person who's been skiing for 40 years as the person who's decided to ski this one time because they just watch the Olympics? How do you get people to feel comfortable when they walk into Christie Sports?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a good point. And, I did talk about our culture and the osmosis effect and, kind of how that looks and, how it works. I mean, we also, do have, training and development programs and try to, again, kind of codify, what is the special sauce and what does good look like for inspiring our customers, no matter if they're a very, core, avid, advanced participant or whether they're a newcomer. And given the effects of the COVID pandemic on people's desire to get outside and participate in outdoor activities, we've seen a lot of newcomers, newcomers and lapsed returnees to snow sports and to outdoor activities the last couple of years. And for us, I think the key words, Joe, is even though we're a leading tip of the spear specialist, it's of paramount importance to us that we remain approachable and we remain relatable. Like you touched on, the last thing we want to do is be intimidating to newcomers or to people who are very excited and very eager to get into these activities and to get started and to learn. We really know the drill, especially in the Rockies, which have seen also a lot of population growth the last few years. People wanting to kind of have checked out from the mega cities, and for a lot of good reasons, including the life quality here, and the outdoor resources have moved here, and we have so many people coming into our stores and looking to us. And I'm new to Colorado, I'm new to Utah, I'm new to Montana, and I'm interested and I'm excited to try this and get started. We know the script.
Yeah.
We know how to, then sort of roll from there.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I always feel like any kind of store, like a super specialty store like that, and it's probably just me being in my own head, I feel like I'm being judged. I'm sure you feel like that, Matt, when you walk into like a Louis Vuitton store. It's that kind of thing where you're like, I'm not used to being here. Please treat me like I belong. I'm sure there's probably like soft skills that your team has to develop over the years to make people feel comfortable.
Yes. To an extent, it's, again, that approachable, relatable, genuine, authentic, I think, approach. And there's some of that, which certainly, we train on. And then a decent amount of it is, how their parents brought them up, to be honest.
Yeah. No.
We sort of look for the best marriage of the two.
That's awesome. You mentioned the pandemic, and I remember reading an article in Axios that you gave about this pandemic boom because folks were like, I can't do anything inside, so I better go outside. I don't want to talk about the pandemic anymore, but talk to me about the after effects. Like, are you still seeing that sort of incline in activity in outdoor sports, or have you seen it flatten out since things have gotten back to normal a bit?
No, the outdoor trend, the step outside, trend, remains strong, remains robust, for sure. I think people want and need to get outside now more than ever. And that's, had the unintended benefit from, this pandemic pandemonium for our industry, for the winter and outdoor industry. And the great outdoors has, clearly been a safe haven for physical and mental stimulation and interaction. And there have been, as I said, a lot of newcomers and lapsed returnees, and they're participating in just a wide variety of outdoor sports and activities, which I think is, part of what is, attractive about outdoor sports and activities. There's a lot of options.
You probably don't want to say this, but do you feel like a store like Christie's is big box and Amazon proof? And I'm not saying that you're indestructible in any mean, but the fact that you offer this experience and it's something that a big box store can't do, or you can do it via e-com, that you're pretty comfortable in that space where you're like, unless someone decides to do the Christie's model on their own, but you're pretty safe from those kind of threats, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're completely immune, but I do think there's some uniqueness and durability, and resilience based on, from who we are and what we do and, our business model, which, lets me sleep okay at night. Not every night, but
right.
most.
Well, CEOs aren't supposed to sleep, so you know that. Yeah.
My wife, once in a while, she looks at me and says to me, she says, why are you so worried? And I said, well, that's my job.
Yes, that's why they pay you. Yeah.
But, I do think what we talked about, our service and our service levels, the experience we provide. And we have a kind of a unique, in this day and age, omni model of stores in key metro areas for snow sports and outdoor sports, like Denver and Salt Lake City and Seattle, and then clusters of store locations in the key epicenter mountain resorts like Vail and Steamboat and Telluride and Park City and Taos and Big Sky, and the list goes on. And then we layer digital platforms. It's kind of the overlay for the customer. So from online to the cities, to the key resorts, we have this model and we have, this presence, which can meet customers and, serve them where they are and, where they want to engage with us.
Big part of this conversation is the experience at Christie's, but you mentioned the online aspect, and I kind of touched upon e-com, but I'm curious, how much of a piece of the pie is e-com right now for your company?
Interesting question. And because, again, of the technicality and all of the service components of our key product categories, we have, I'd say, lower penetration for product sales online, although it's growing and, there just is more, obviously, these days, consumer activity, and behavior online. And so not only do we want to sell something to somebody online, but be able to combine that with a service offering to them, and again, make sure it's only sort of, we want that to be part of the relationship with us, not the whole relationship just transactionally. But for our rental business, and we are definitely a strong leader in ski and snowboard rental in the US. What we do online as part of that customer journey, to provide them information and to engage with our rental customers, and for them, allow them to reserve online and have different sort of advantages associated with that, and then be able to reserve online and take advantage of our whole network, wherever they want to pick up, wherever they want to return, wherever they need service. It plays a huge role in our rental business.
So your ecom is really leaning more towards customer service, it sounds like. I mean, you'll be happy to sell like a $300 jacket, but more than likely folks will go on there to reserve or find out more information about a product and then go to the store.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's part of the customer journey. We're not really just focused on, how much can we sell transactionally online. I'd much rather, customer buy something from us online and then also be able to take advantage of and be serviced throughout our network of store locations.
And speaking of those locations, you mentioned the fact that mostly you're in the big ski states like Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Washington, Montana. Scaling. Is there something in your maybe DNA or maybe something in your bones that you're like, man, I'd love to take Christie Sports to a more national scope? And I don't mean national in terms of like going to Florida, but like going to a Vermont, going to a Pennsylvania, going to New York. Is that something that interests you, or do you like the idea of being sort of this Western regional sort of empire?
No, I'm really interested in taking the business national and potentially international. I think, we take a lot of pride in what we do and in the service, the special service and experience we provide. I mean, we feel that we're pretty darn good at, what we do. And so that, plus the spirit of sort of exploring and being adventurers, there's a lot of still, really sort of aspirational destinations, places of practice and play where, myself and the team, would love to take our show on the road. There's still areas here in the Western US where we don't have presence, or, we're underpenetrated. We think we could, again, offer what we do and, our service and our experience to more outdoor and, winter and outdoor participants. And, as the company's journey continues, the East Coast, I think it's not a matter of, if, it's only, when the timing will be right, and we would find, sort of the right, opportunity to also expand over there.
And how would you, again, this is all sort of big picturing it, how would you do it as a private company? Would it require like investors teaming up with maybe another company? What kind of steps would you take to scale? Because I'm curious when it comes to this, because when you're a private company, the scaling is kind of tricky, because it's either you bring on investors or you have to team up with somebody else. So what's your mindset there?
Well, we've actually, already teamed up with investors. We are majority owned by a private equity group called the TZP Group out of New York. It's been a great partnership. Again, we have, I think a real strong alignment around values and a shared vision, and it's working well. And so, when you're expanding a business like this, at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. I mean, you either build or buy.
Right.
And, we're doing both, to be honest, as, we continue to expand with a sustainable growth model. And we've done both. As I say, we've done both.
Okay.
We expand organically, with opening new stores or expanding existing stores. as I say, in terms of our whole digital transformation and elevating our online presence in business. And we've also have got a good track record and a good repeatable model around, acquiring other ski and outdoor specialists
I was just
and
going to say that
bringing them into the fold.
yeah, because when you say buy, that means you're going into a market where a Christie's doesn't exist, but there's a mom and pop chain that has 2 or 3 stores. That would be something you would that would be part of your scale up model, right? Buying those kind of maybe available stores that are in markets that you'd like to penetrate.
Yes,
Okay.
and we're already doing it. That's actually our expansion into Washington State, our expansion into Mexico, and our expansion into Montana were all through strategic acquisitions.
Smart. All right, cool. And we joked about the fact that you don't sleep much as a CEO. What have you learned in your, what is this? I'm terrible at math, but 5 years you've been at Christie. How have you changed as a person, CEO, leader, all those kind of businessy questions? Like, what are some of the sort of keys that you feel like you've evolved as a human?
That's pretty deep, Joe.
Yeah, man. I'm hitting you hard here, Matt.
Coming with the hanging curveball.
Yeah.
I think, I came from a background all in the sporting goods industry, but from a larger public company, and the value and the priority on culture and people. And, they say, you're trying to be successful and kind of create the conditions, for success, obviously, for the business and for the organization and, for the stakeholders. But that you can't manage results and you can't, run a business on a spreadsheet. The power of culture, the power, of people and people and a team, and the power of values. And then really focusing, more on, as I say, you can't manage results, but you can manage activities. And I guess that's, coming from, my background, from a larger sort of, bureaucracy and kind of performance management machine into a smaller specialty business. But, as I say, one really, fueled by, the power of its passionate employee base, and its values and culture and stuff has been really rewarding for me.
That's awesome. And one thing I want to pick there is I've noticed when I speak to people involved in small businesses, up to 100 employees or so, I feel like a lot of small business overcomplicate things and try to emulate big business. How do you prevent that from happening at something like Christie's, which has this very cool family, almost, family business type vibe, but also have these practices and processes and strategies that big businesses have? Because I feel like sometimes small companies try to do that and they shouldn't.
Yeah. So this is what keeps me up at night.
Okay. Sorry.
This exactly, honestly, what keeps me up at night is you have a beautiful, business like this with a great culture and passionate employee base. At the same time, businesses either grow or die. And, we continue to be on the front foot and to go for our potential. I have definitely tried to and continue to incorporate some people, process, and technology best practices from my career into Christie's. But at the end of the day, this is a passion play. And as I say, it's a lifestyle business and you got to keep it fun.
Yeah. It's like threading the needle, right? Because you want to, it's like you have like these, all this skill set that you acquired over your life, Matt, but you're like, man, I can't use all of my skills here, right? Is that something you run into?
Yeah, it is a balancing act. Yeah. And I really, try to be conscious of, what is the best marriage between, people, process, and technology, best practices, and keep sort of, professionalizing on the one hand and building structure and capabilities and kind of new muscle memory into the business model. But, at the same time, keep it fun, keep it with the right sort of tone. And, even if these things are a little bit more people, process, and technology driven, what's the right mix?
Yeah.
And also, what are ways to kind of animate and to implement, things like that, which are on brand, and, where people will, hopefully, sort of be interested and welcome, the opportunities to learn, improve, and grow, rather than look at it as corporate bureaucracy.
Well, if your wife asks you why you can't sleep, just have her listen to this podcast where you kind of explain your feelings as to why you have trouble sleeping at night. And lastly, Matt, I just want to pick your brain on this. You've got a lot of experience in sporting goods, and I've seen over the evolution of my adult life, 20, 30 years, I kind of joked about like the sports authorities going away and the Herman Sporting Goods and regional sport retailers kind of just dying because of the Dick's Sporting Goods and the Walmarts of the world. What does the future of sporting goods look like to you? Step out of your CEO hat, but like as a consumer, where do you see sporting goods like in the next 10, 20 years? Is it basically if you want to buy some sort of jock equipment, you're going to have to either go to Walmart or Dick's?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it'll specialize more. Customers are very savvy, are very discerning, and, certainly, there is a kind of a role for Amazon, and Walmart for sure, but that I think that there's more, demand around experience and service than you might think. And that will kind of win the day for sporting goods and, for the market, going forward. And again, the demand, continues to grow, that people are looking for more than a transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny too, Matt, interviewing leaders, reading business books. You hear the thing about retail is dead. I don't think retail is dead. Now, obviously you don't agree with that either, but I think retail has changed in a way where it's not about the transaction anymore. Just like you said, it's like supermarkets now are not what supermarkets looked like 25 years ago. Back in the day, supermarkets had terrible lighting. They looked like a horror movie was shot there just recently. And now you go into a supermarket and there's tastings and there's sampling. There's all these stations that you can experience. The old school supermarket, that's gone. It's this kind of very experiential supermarket experience. And I think that is the model that most retailers should look at and be like, I don't want to be that gross old supermarket. It's not just about the people walking in and walking out. It's about experiencing something when they get there. And obviously, you've mastered it there at Christie Sports, but I think that's where retail going forward, to me, looks like, or you are not going to survive.
Yeah, I violently agree. I think, if we continue to inspire our customers, then, the future is bright. And we have a signature store program, which is our latest and greatest retail format. And we've been implementing that for the last few years. And, the stores are large on the one hand, but really the architecture plus, the interiors, a lot of attention to detail and, really inspiring kind of retail environment. And with our footprint of 65 stores, we really, stay on the front foot of continuing to renovate and, elevate the stores. So, they don't get old and stale and, long in the tooth. And that plus continuing to drive a best-in-class omni-channel model, where, again, you can service, engage, the customers where they're at and where they want to engage with us, and, do it with very high service levels is the winning formula.
His name is Matt Gold. He's the CEO of Christie Sports. Matt, go take a nap. You've done well today, all right? Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. We'll see you out there.
Absolutely. And that's it for this edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you take a quick second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.